This is to brief you on the incidents that transpired on Saturday, October the 26th. This particular incident that we'll discuss today started at about 8:10 in the evening. Our officer was assigned to the Moonfest detail. He was an outer perimeter, and what that means is his job was to rove around the perimeter of the Moonfest event with the idea of stopping any type of issues or troubles that might be occurring on the outside while our officers were in on foot patrol on the inside of the event. At about 8:10 hours, there was a report of shots fired. The shots were emanating from the 900 block of 6th Street, that's a 6th and Tamarind area. Officer responded and immediately began to patrol the area. He was flagged down by an individual who indicated to him that the vehicle that had just went by was involved in the shooting. Officer then immediately did a U-turn and began to follow in behind and attempted to stop the vehicle. The vehicle accelerated and ultimately crashed after going through the median in the 1300 block of Parker, which is near Howard Park. The vehicle crashed and came to rest on the sidewalk area. The officer exited his vehicle, and as he exited his vehicle, the deceased, Mr. Pullen, exited the passenger side rear seat and pointed an AK-47, which is very similar to this weapon here, at the officer. The officer immediately opened fire, striking the individual with his police service weapon. The individual went down. Once the scene was stabilized and it was sure that the incident was under control somewhat, the officers immediately began to render first aid. The victim was transported to St. Mary's Hospital where he succumbed from the injuries. At this point in time, the officer is identified as a 5-year veteran of the police department. His name is Police Officer Christopher Nibbling. Chris has been with us, as I mentioned, 5 years. He's done a superb job for us. Our initial review of this particular incident indicates that he has followed policy and procedure. Appears to be an in-policy type of a situation where he was confronted by an individual who's going to, in our estimation, cause serious physical harm to him. So the level of response from Officer Nibbling to neutralize this threat was appropriate. And above and beyond that, the individual, Dimitri Pullen, is a male black, 24 years of age. Unfortunately, he has been known to police for several years. He has been involved in several shooting incidents. As a matter of fact, as earlier as October the 15th, he was involved in a shooting in the North End where he refused to cooperate with police. So it's an unfortunate situation, and our deepest regrets go out to his family for their loss. We have no idea what might have caused this or what was going on. We surmise and we think that there may have been some retaliation from that shooting that I mentioned earlier. Dimitri, unfortunately, Mr. Pullen has been involved in numerous incidents over the last several years. We know that he's been shot at least 3 different times, and unfortunately, he has been identified with the gang involvement up in the North End area. This is an ongoing investigation, so there may be additional arrests forthcoming. We don't know.
Was his weapon loaded? Was it?
Yes, it was loaded. There was a round in the chamber. The rounds that we recovered on Tamarind are consistent with that type of a military type weapon. I can't tell you the havoc or the damage that this individual could have caused if he would have been allowed to flee and get into a residential area there. As you know, we had that entire area on lockdown as we conducted a search. The Moonfest event, as we mentioned, was ongoing as well. City Place was packed with people. If this individual would have gotten into any one of those areas that I've just mentioned, the havoc and the carnage that he could have caused is incomprehensible, and it's something I don't even want to think about. So Nibbling, in my mind, is a hero. Chris chose to stand and protect our community, and I think we are deeply appreciative of his action and his courage and his bravery. This type of a weapon will easily defeat the personal body armor that we issue to our officers. So when you go toe-to-toe with an individual holding and threatening you with this type of a weapon, you know that if he fires a shot at you and strikes you anywhere, that it will most probably be a very lethal and fatal type shot. This is a military weapon. It's designed for one thing, and that's to kill people.
Was he the only officer present when he was confronted by this suspect?
He was the officer that initiated the stop. There were officers that arrived shortly thereafter, but he was the one that was on scene when the individual exited the back of the vehicle. It was basically a one-on-one with several other officers, not far behind, but he was on his own. The driver at this point in time is at large, as is the passenger that was in the front seat. There were 3 individuals in that vehicle. At this point in time, we have no reason to suspect that they were involved in anything. So, as I said, it is an ongoing investigation. They've been identified. We know who they are, but we're choosing not to identify them because at this point they haven't been charged with anything. The one individual was detained at the scene. Another had fled the scene, which is what caused the manhunt that occurred.
Do you know how many shots were fired?
We know our officer fired 12 shots.
And what about the suspect?
I don't have that information at this point. He exited the back of the vehicle. He lowered the AK-47 and pointed it in the direction of the officer, and the officer opened fire.